listener production. Hey, welcome to The Briefing. I'm Sasha Barbagat. Last week, the United States was the undisputed leader in the race for global AI domination. Not anymore.
There's, I think, a lesson to take away from here, which is it's not he who has the best toys. It's he who knows how to use the toys they have best.
In the second half of this episode, we find out how a little-known Chinese competitor to ChatGPT wiped $1 trillion off the stock market and smashed what we thought we knew about the world's most in-demand new technology. But first, it is time for the headlines with Chris Spiro on Wednesday, January 29.
Morning, Sash. Morning, everybody. 14 men who were charged with attending a neo-Nazi march on Australia Day have faced court in Adelaide. 40 all up were arrested on Sunday after they stormed the CBD chanting "White Man Fight Back" and singing Waltzing Matilda while dressed all in black and some allegedly wearing Nazi symbols. The group was hit with charges from loitering and wearing articles of disguise to displaying Nazi symbols and resisting arrest.
Yeah, all of them were granted bail, but the leader of the group behind the march, the National Socialist Network, was remanded in custody after he refused to sign his own bail papers. 31-year-old Thomas Sewell telling the magistrate he was using his civil liberties as blackmail and that he hadn't broken any law at any state and was just peacefully celebrating Australia Day. Well, I'm going to fact check Thomas Sewell right there. The South Australian Parliament outlawed the display of Nazi symbols or salutes following a sharp and sudden increase in anti-Semitic expression across the country, which we saw kind of explode after the October 7 attack in 2023. And that law came into effect in December 2024. So according to police, he did break the law because they say he was wearing a Nazi symbol. Only one of the men who attended this march was from Adelaide. The rest were from interstate, mostly Victoria. Now, the men who were released yesterday will face court again at various times this year. And Australia's Race Discrimination Commissioner has also spoken about this and released a statement condemning the rally and saying the rise in far-right ideologies in Australia can't be ignored. And he is calling for a national anti-racism framework, saying it's the only way to adequately combat the rise of the white supremacy movement.
Labor is warning Peter Dutton's election promise to cut tens of thousands of government jobs will lead to longer wait times for essential services, things like answering phones at Centrelink and the ATO to processing NDIS and migration requests. The opposition leader appointed Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price as the Shadow Minister for Government Efficiency, which had echoes of Musk/Trump, Doge, over the weekend, in a statement saying Australians were sick of wasteful spending, setting his sights on the 36,000 public servants employed under the Albanese government, which he says cost the taxpayer around $6 billion a year. And importantly, those public servants were those who have been employed since Labor came to government in 2022.
Finance Minister Katie Gallagher has hit back at Dutton's election pitch, though, saying without these roles, tax avoidance and threats to national security could rise. And her office has also detailed what roles could be on the chopping block, saying that since 2022, the government has employed thousands of people across Services Australia, the AFP, NDIS, ATO, Veterans Affairs, as well as in the Agriculture and Energy departments. The coalition claims these cuts will allow them to redirect spend on things like cost of living relief and bolstering defence and security in other ways. And as you said, Chris, the fact that he's appointed Nampijinpa-Price in this role of government efficiency, it's exactly the same term that Trump has used for the role he created for Musk. So, I mean, I know we've talked about it a couple of times before, but we're seeing those similarities between the way that Dutton is kind of running his campaign. It's different in Australia, no doubt, but we are seeing those similarities creep in more and more.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to governments cutting spend, I don't think these are the ones that need to be on the chopping block. If you stick around for today's deep dive, there is a pretty huge industry at the moment that could, in my opinion, do with less government funding. Whether that's spicy or not, you can stick around and find out for yourself. Hey, and look, no doubt, as you mentioned, cost of living, that will be something that's getting a mention today. Inflation figures, so the trimmed mean inflation or the average rate of inflation, that is out today around midday, with struggling borrowers hopeful of a rate cut in February when the RBA meet for the first time this year.
Yeah, economists are saying that if this figure is trending down, then that is the best indication we'll have so far that the RBA will cut the official cash rate come February. Over to the US now, where Donald Trump has ordered an immediate halt to government grants. A leaked memo has ordered all departments to pause grant, loan, and other financial assistance programs. Now, this might sound like a bunch of federal bureaucracy, Chris, but this is significant because governments the world over, including right here in Australia, fund a huge range of programs and initiatives. And without this money, they wouldn't exist, which is similar to kind of what we were talking about in the previous headline. So among them in the US, this would affect nonprofits in health, agriculture, crime, the environment. Think things like support programs for low-income kids and cancer research initiatives. So it's indiscriminate. It's just kind of right across the board. The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has spoken out about this, saying the move is lawless, dangerous, destructive, and cruel as well.
So as to what happens next, well, the Office of Management and Budget now wants affected agencies to answer several questions about their impacted programs, including whether they have any funding related to undocumented immigrants, climate policy, diversity programs, or abortion. OMB is asking agencies to submit their answers no later than next Friday.
And it's interesting that directive you just read out, which is, they want to know, do their programs involve special compensations for immigrants or climate or diversity or abortion? So if you read into that what it is, it's the Trump administration kind of enacting its position on not wanting to support things that have DEI initiatives and, that are focused on climate. Or the abortion one is interesting because, Trump was kind of really tiptoeing around the abortion issue during the campaign. So, the flow-on effects to this would affect millions of Americans.
Yeah, and just following up from yesterday, the trans ban for the military is official, with Donald Trump issuing executive orders claiming transgender people are mentally and physically unfit to serve in the US military. He's also overnight reiterated comments he made over the weekend about Gaza and, quote, cleaning it out, which have been condemned as akin to supporting ethnic cleansing. He says a large number of Palestinians should resettle in Jordan and Egypt, a proposal that both countries have completely rejected, essentially saying that Gaza and parts of the West Bank belong to the Palestinians. They have an absolute right to be living there. And finally, before we do leave the US, a January 6 rioter who was pardoned by Trump after serving his 6-month sentence has been shot dead by police in a routine traffic stop in Indiana. That's just a little footnote there because that headline is swirling around this morning.
And finishing off on a much lighter and brighter note, we'd like to wish a big happy Lunar New Year to you all. So the Year of the Snake is officially getting underway today as Australia's Asian communities celebrate the start of the Chinese lunar solar calendar for another year. And celebrations will continue until February 12, and that is when the full moon will disappear, Chris.
So while it's been commonly known as Chinese New Year, the annual event is celebrated by much of Eastern Asia, including Korea, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And it does center on, this zodiac animal. Last year was the year of the dragon. This year, as you said, is the year of the snake. So that is for people who were born in, for example, 1977, 1989, 2001, 2013, and now, of course, 2025. So your baby will be a snake baby.
Snake baby.
Hey, look, and then I just wanted to have a little tinker around and see what the defined characteristics and traits are of people born in particular years. So, Sash, your zodiac animal is the rooster. So here are the top characteristics of a rooster. Busy.
She's busy gal.
Ambitious. Focused. And then this last one, fashion focused.
Oh, that's not me.
No, that's
Don't get me wrong.
not.
I like to look nice, but I wouldn't call myself a fashion girly.
And so then here are my characteristics. I really like this one. Talented.
No, you are.
Thank you. Creative.
Yes.
Lucky.
Yes.
Reserved.
No.
No. But hey, look, happy Lunar New Year to anyone who's celebrating, and definitely worth checking out your zodiac animals and seeing if they speak to you, because it's so much fun to do.
I love checking that stuff out. Thank you. What a lovely way to end the headlines, Chris. Next up, we are getting into a deep dive looking at DeepSeek. You would have seen headlines about this right across the day yesterday. We're explaining what's going on and why you should care about it.
Hey, Bension here. The biggest company in the world has just suffered the biggest collapse in value in history over a nerdy little research paper. Last week, US artificial intelligence company NVIDIA was the most valuable corporation on the planet. But then, little-known Chinese AI company DeepSeek released a paper showing its AI model performed better than all the others, including ChatGPT, on most tests. And importantly, that it was built many times more cheaply than ChatGPT and the other models to achieve that kind of performance. This shattered global assumptions that the unbeatable leader in the most important technology of the 21st century was the United States, and that companies like NVIDIA or OpenAI, the one that runs ChatGPT, were worth as much as the hype of the past couple of years had suggested. Almost instantly, NVIDIA's value plummeted by $600 billion or so, and it was knocked off its perch. It is no longer the world's most valuable company by quite a long way. And at the time of recording, DeepSeek has shot to the #1 most downloaded app on iPhone. So what is so special about it? What will it mean for people who use AI regularly in their daily lives? And what does it mean for the future of the technology? Mark Pesce is partner at Wisely AI, which is an AI consultancy. He's also honorary associate in digital cultures at the University of Sydney. Mark, welcome to the briefing. Did China just beat the US in the most important technological race of this century?
No. Let's unroll that a little bit.
Go on.
Really, what has happened is that the Chinese have shown that even under American sanctions, which they've been living under for about 2 years, which keeps them from getting the very latest generation of chips that we use to create AI systems, that they can create AI systems that are the equal. We haven't necessarily bettered, but the equal of the very best systems from OpenAI.
Okay, so you talked about sanctions. This is basically the things that stopped the Chinese companies getting access to really high-tech US microchips. But this has shown that they don't need those. Has the US kind of played itself here?
There's, I think, a lesson to take away from here, which is it's not he who has the best toys. It's he who knows how to use the toys they have best.
Right, okay. Let's say that we are talking about whether China or the US wins this particular technological race. Why does that matter in terms of the safety for the world population?
The people who are throwing huge amounts of money into AI right now, and we're past stupid. I think we're probably at ludicrous amounts of money. And, just last week, Project Stargate was announced, which is $500 billion of investment from a range of firms, including Oracle and OpenAI and some Japanese funds to basically produce the data centers that are going to run these huge AI things. All of this is predicated on what we call AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, which is a computer that can have similar reason and problem-solving abilities to a human being. Everyone in the field is throwing money at solving that problem. But I can tell you, because we've been at this for a number of years, throwing money does not solve that problem. If it had, we would have solved the problem already. So we have to ask whether throwing money at the problem is the right way to approach this, or, in fact, what we saw with DeepSeek was they applied some very smart things to it that got the model to be smarter than it might have been. And they did this very inexpensively, but they were clever. And so what we're seeing is kind of a competition between two models of how we can get to big AI, one of which is that you need to be smart, the other one of which is we need to be big.
I will ask you about DeepSeek in just 1 second, but in terms of who owns the future, like if we are scared of the superintelligence that gets out of control, for example, or we're scared of losing 100 million jobs because there's AI agents that can do everything better than we can, does it matter whether the US private company does that or whether the Chinese non-private company does that?
So because I mean, and it's hard not to talk about DeepSeek at this point because they have shared everything, because everything they've released is open source and you can download it. It is essentially resets the commercial advantages of the private US firms. But it does that without disabling anyone's else's efforts. So everyone now has even a better foundation to build products on, including the Chinese, including the Americans, including anyone who wants to. So it's probably not so much a win-loss scenario. Having this out there means that probably OpenAI and Meta and Google will actually adopt these things too where it makes sense for them. So it's in fact the kind of idea that the rising tide raises all boats.
What is so special about DeepSeek?
I guess we need to break DeepSeek down. There's two things. There's V3, which is a normal chatbot, very similar to, say, OpenAI's 4.0, which is their current generation chatbot. And that was released before Christmas. It didn't get a lot of attention because it was released before Christmas. But when people started to look at it, they realized that they had trained it, so built the model, for about $6 million US. And the thing that's weird about that is that when, say, OpenAI goes and trains 4.0, or Meta goes and trains Llama, or Google goes and trains Gemini, they spend at least 10 times that amount of money, often 20 or 30 times. So $200 million could easily be spent training these models. And so all of a sudden, you have a whole bunch of people going, why are we going to be spending $500 billion again when it looks like these folks over here figured out a way to do it for a lot cheaper? And when we see what happened on the stock market today, it was literally the stock analysts looking at these numbers going, okay, are those companies going to be spending that kind of money? Is NVIDIA going to be selling all of the chips that they think they'll be selling? Because what it's done is it's done things differently. And when you do things differently, you disrupt the way things are being done now. And right now, that's spending a lot of money and buying a lot of NVIDIA chips.
Is DeepSeek basically like ChatGPT, but cheaper?
So V3 is the thing that's kind of like ChatGPT, but cheaper. Then there's R1, which is the thing that was just released. And R1 is what we call a reasoning model. And OpenAI has the best reasoning model in the world called O1, because everyone's using these weird names now. And what it does is it isn't just a chatbot, but it's a chatbot which will then, when you pose a question to it, it will take a look at the answer that it's provided, break it down. Did I do that right? Could I do it better? In other words, it thinks about it. In a computer sense, it thinks about it. It's called a reasoning program. And O1 was pretty much gold standard when it was released a few months ago, and it wasn't seen clearly how anyone else was going to get close to it. Well, R1, which is built from DeepSeek V3, was released last week and is basically as good as O1 is. So all of a sudden, this technology that everyone thought was basically the gold standard, people aren't going to be better. Oh, well, here's this thing that came out from this little Chinese company that is open source, so anyone can take it and build their own reasoning models on top of it, is now freely available. And I think that's the thing that's the shocker, is it's not just building a chatbot, because lots of people can do that now, but building this next level reasoning engine that they didn't think people were going to have. And now we have an open source one that people will be using in all sorts of unexpected ways.
One of the big problems with AI is that making it work costs so much energy, and you have to build these huge data centers and use a huge amount of water, for example. Does the fact that DeepSeek could do this with so few resources relatively mean that AI could be more environmentally friendly in the future than we thought it would be?
The answer to that is an unqualified yes. Basically, when they published their results last month, they provided page after page of all of these techniques that they had created to make things more efficient. And they're offering these techniques to everyone else. They basically say, here, NVIDIA, here's some things that can make your chips more efficient. Here, OpenAI, here's some things that could make your software more efficient. So the answer is, as these innovations, and it's not just one, there's a whole paper filled with lots of innovations, as they make their way out to the field, we will be seeing AI getting better and cheaper. And the thing is, this has consistently been the case. The amount of energy it takes to generate a model and to run a model is much lower than it was, say, 2 years ago when ChatGPT was introduced. It's just that so many people are using it now, and the models are so much bigger now that that's grown faster than the optimizations have. And now those optimizations are really going to kick in.
What do you think in terms of the way that regular people use artificial intelligence? What do you think that's going to look like in a year, 5 years, 10 years?
I don't think there's going to be a huge change in 1 year. Everyone in Silicon Valley is talking about agents, which is basically where you can kind of have an employee that you assign a task to and it can perform a task. And right now they work, but they're really wobbly and they make a lot of mistakes. And so we're in this era where we want to use AI for all sorts of fancy things. But in fact, the more AI that you bring into an organization, the more human oversight you need, which tends to cancel out the cost savings. And I don't think we have a clear way through that other than just learning how to use the tools. So in fact, in 1 year, things don't look very different. In 5 years, they start to look different because people have gotten a real facility for working with models. They're using them day to day to handle tasks. So in fact, what's probably happened is rather than having mass unemployment, you have employees that are actually doing more on the job, whether that's more customer service or more reports or more communication, whatever it might be, because they have those agents alongside them. Now, that's not to say that there aren't a whole set of bosses out there who have this imagination that they're the one person running this army of bots that's just running the entire business. And I think there will be a few businesses like that, but those businesses are going to be rare and they're still going to be wobbly.
What if I, as a regular person, would just like to say, hey, AI bot, here's $100. Go away, make this into a business for me. Do something on Amazon or something. Come back and give me $10,000, say. Is that something that could be in the near future, in the medium-term future?
So I think probably what listeners should do is they should go and grab the DeepSeek app. You can sign up, it's free. Go and set it into the R1 mode, the reasoning mode, and put the question to DeepSeek. Hey, DeepSeek, here's $100. How do I need to turn this into $10,000 in 12 months? Lay out a plan, because that's exactly what a reasoning model is going to do. Now, what they should not do is take the response that's generated as gospel. You have to look that gift horse in the mouth. Take the best parts. If they look like they're going to work for you, put them into practice. Get a little more money, go back to DeepSeek. Okay, I have $200. How do we? And you can repeat that process. So it's not magic. You're deeply involved and you're deeply checking the results to make sure it's all right. But you have a tool that can help you get there.
Okay, but Mark, I don't want to do the work. I don't want it to explain to me how to make money. I want it to make me the money. When is that coming?
So you've just asked it basically to give it control of your bank account and a whole bunch of other things that we're very careful about, because AI still has this tendency to what we euphemistically call hallucinate. Really what we should say is make huge mistakes, right? Either just making things up off the whole cloth or getting things wrong in such a weird way. And even as these models have gotten better, the hallucination rates have come down, but they haven't been eliminated. And as near as the researchers can tell, it's just kind of the nature of the way these things work. And so I think the question I want to put to you is, we can give it the $100, but there's going to be a 2 or 3% chance it's going to hallucinate it away and you'll never see it again. How do you feel about that? And that's going to be true for every decision it makes along the way. So that 1 or 2, 3% adds up and adds up and adds up.
Well, damn. Okay, that's all I have to say. Mark, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thank you.
Mark Pesce there. He's partner at Wisely AI and honorary associate in digital cultures at the University of Sydney. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Briefing. That's it for now. Before you go though, we'd love it if you could share this app with someone you think might enjoy it. It's a really easy way you can support us and all we do here at The Briefing. And you can always check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast and on TikTok and YouTube, search Listener Newsroom. I'm Bension Siebert. Catch you next time.